On this video, I'm going to speak about retirement for high net wealth individuals, especially for high net wealth individuals who are likely to be quite location independent, like expats, or they're planning to spend some time overseas. But some of the tips I'm going to give will also be relevant for other people in other situations. And before going into this video, go over to adamfire.com, especially if you're an expat and a high net wealth individual, and see how I can help you. Now, the first thing I would look at when it comes to retirement as an expat is your structure. That includes anything from your investment structure to trust to insurance and so on and so forth, because ultimately what you set up years ago might not be appropriate going forward. So, for example, if you're an American living in America and then you leave the US and you go to other jurisdictions, some of the tax planning or our financial planning you put in place might not be appropriate. Same for British expats. I've spoken a lot recently about how there's proposed inheritance tax changes for British expats coming, and that will change how you look at your structure one way or the other. Beyond that, I would also look closely at liquidity. There's a lot of people, even people close to retirement, who have illiquid assets like housing and property and so on. I would very much look at liquidity. Thirdly, in addition to that, I would also look at cash flow planning and realistic cash flow planning. What do I mean more specifically by that? I mean that if you're going to be overseas or even in your home country, the cost of healthcare might absolutely skyrocket. So you've got to be realistic about, how much you need any given year. When you're 85, you might not be traveling as much, but your healthcare might be much more expensive, for example. But again, that will depend on where you're going to retire. But ultimately, what I have seen is not asking those what if questions. This isn't just for high net worth individuals. This is for many people. But it is common for high net worth individuals to think, well, I've got millions of dollars, so therefore I should have enough for retirement. But ultimately, if you've got plenty of liquid assets and maybe you haven't factored in the cost of healthcare, you also have to do the maths, because having millions in assets doesn't necessarily mean you could, spend hundreds of thousands a year necessarily. It depends on many things. Another thing I would look at quite carefully is your assets you have, because Vanguard and other companies have pretty good retirement calculators online about assets. However, bear in mind, the academic evidence shows you can only withdraw 3 to 4% of a mixed portfolio per year. If you're in cash, which it shouldn't be, it's more like 2%. So don't think, oh, interest rates are now 5%, and inflation's gone down to 2 or 3%, so I can spend 3 or 4% easily every year. You can't, because there's inflation risk. So that kind of leads back though to the what if questions. The what if questions are things like, well, what if interest rates go down, which they're likely to do, by the way? What if I've got loads of assets in the Eurozone and I'm now living in, I don't know, the US or the UK, and the euro loses a lot of its value? It's asking all those uncomfortable questions, right? What can go wrong? Because what I have seen is when retirement doesn't work, it's usually when people are not asking what can actually go wrong with certain circumstances. Those are all the main things I would say. And finally, I would say focus on estate planning. Obviously, if you're going to retire, that's great if you can spend a lot of your money, but a lot of people want to make sure that when they actually die, they pass on their assets in a productive way. So doing tax planning and estate planning can be very important, because there's plenty of people out there who don't want to spend all of their money in retirement. They want to leave some of their assets to their children as well.